decided a few years back. Decided a few years back. That three commissioners were tasked with overseeing the works. That's why we call any sort of cleanup commissioners. Since then, we've been knocking them down, landscaping the space cleared, and the downtown area. We've laid out new streets, like the one along the river. Commissar Street is what it's called, after those commissioners. We're lengthening other streets, like Elfadam, towards the townships that are growing too. We're building a new market on the site of the old Vaudreuil Chateau with the Nelson column, and Champs, the city's first public park. Then, we use the retreated stones to reinforce and build buildings, warehouses, houses, you name it. Yep, there have been lots of changes since. Others to come too, I chance to guess. Especially with those steamboats we see more and more often on the river. There's still plenty of honest work for the next few years. But for the time being, I'll just finish this here now.
Although the fortifications have definitely disappeared from Montreal's landscape, archaeological digs have revealed that the ruins remain, buried under pitted spaces and in building basements. The city of Montreal, in collaboration with the Ministère de la Culture, de Communication et de la Fondation Civile du Québec, develops interpretation and appreciation programs for these ruins, all found in the historic Old Montreal Borough. It's in the group keeps busy setting their markers.
It's fascinating to see all that's hidden behind this history. At least here, we'll see what there is to see. These granite slabs sitting right will show what archaeologists have found here, having identified the foundations of the old stone fortifications that once surrounded the city. It also helps preserve them as the vestiges are still there, right under them. Ground markings like that can be found elsewhere in Old Montreal. There are a few on Gosford and Notre-Dame streets, and on Beausecourt, just north of Notre-Dame. There are also a few set along Welcoming Street, between Saint-Hubert and Paul Streets. That's where the Quebec Bastion stood at the time. And near Jacques-Cartier Square, which marks the right periphery of the government door through which visiting dignitaries entered Montreal. There are also a few on Place Royale. That's where the market door afforded direct access to the city's public square. It's a busy building on Friday, seeing as how back then, on Maple Street in St. Paul and streets, they've added some quite interesting interpretations. These structures here give you a very good idea of the expense and especially the height of this sculpture. What they used to call the Chamas side, that's a sight to see. Or that's where they haven't covered the vestiges under by archaeologists. You can see a complete section of the front of the fortifications, the scarp, the counter scarp, and the ditch of the two bastions. It gives an idea of the scale of the ramparts. They must have been impressive, considering they surrounded the city from Maple to Berry streets, and from there to Main to City. Vestiges of the fortified city can be seen in situ, as they say, and some are even found inside certain buildings, such as the Rue du Canal Museum. In the crypt of the Beausecourt you get even further back in time. Traces of the stakes from the wooden stockades are conserved there. It's truly fascinating that all these vestiges remain to testify to the city's early days and the life of our ancestors. Many other traces can be found in Old Montreal. Ground markings indicate the remains of buildings as well, recalling other important moments revived from our history. En 1900, les ouvriers ont trouvé sur le site du Champlain secondaire. Plusieurs se sont demandé qui pourrait bien se cacher sous les traits. Certains ont vu entrer.
Meeting can be fun with SodaStream at home. SodaStream, push for better.
Carving. Grinnell Architectural Carving was established in 1978. It has now become a company that handles large architectural carving projects, all custom. The advantage of custom carving is that the client's needs can be met. We work closely with architects and designers and merchants to make sure that they get a good design, well-carved carving at the budget they need. It is individually designed. Each piece. Intrinsically, the only way to speed up the carving was to get more carpets. It still takes the same time to carve the printing now in the 21st century as it did back if you're in a workshop, it's exactly as if it was in a workshop for 2000 years, exactly the same. You know, the tools we're using are exactly the same, the techniques are exactly the same, the thought process is exactly the same. But as soon as it leaves that workshop and into the modern world, you have to do that. What happens when you're carving by hand is that you're working straight from your drawings, straight under the or anything like that. You just carry straight and the skill carving of the show just can produce a specifically, I believe that a machine just doesn't understand the flow of good quality carving that beautiful and Christmas. Machines just don't understand the structure or the movement, they can't see the detail, they just pound it out on the machine. And of course, because the machine works at a spin, you never get that nice, crisp look that you will obviously get from a skilled carver, or the thought behind it, the intimacy behind it. You can't really get the flow and movement of a carving without having a touch, a skillful hand behind the chisel. What we do is very intimate. We have an intimate relationship with the wood. We have an intimate relationship with our clients' needs. Some of our clients have been coming back to us for decades because they trust us. They trust working with us. And that I consider marks our success. I'm always working to create a job that when we've all completed it, everyone shakes everyone's hand and says, we look forward to working with you again. That's what I think it makes a successful company and enables us to carry on and take it to the future. I want someone in 200 or 300 years to look back and see our work and respect and admire the work that my company and my colleagues we have been able to achieve. And that's very, very important to us. The legacy is in our work. in-place concrete is a major architectural feature of the design. This unique concrete provides both the structure and the finished surface. It was selected by Luton as a strong, timeless building material. It's called pozzolanic concrete because it was first used in Rome. Pozzolan is a mineral that comes from volcanic ash. They added it to cement mixes to give the concrete thickness, but it's also an element of water resistance. The concrete looks a little mottled, but it really feels like poured stone. It was constructed using plywood floor panels. The floor panels were coated with 6 layers of resin finish and then sanded down to provide this smooth surface that you see today. To hide the joints between the plywood panels, Luton created these beveled edges, which accentuate. Luton wanted to accentuate the holes left by the form ties on the front and the back side of the plywood forming panels. These are lead plugs replacing the form tie holes and ground holes to produce orderly and finished look to the building. Once the concrete was set in place, the processing of the finish. No grinding, no filling, above all, no painting. After 50 years of use, there is some maintenance in the upkeep of the concrete, but Luton's design provided a solid, timeless appearance of the soldier.
Hi, I'm Brent Hull, Hull Historical. Today I'm going to talk to you about ornament. Ornament is one of those lost arts of buildings that we have kind of forgotten how to do, forgotten its purpose and how it relates to our buildings and design. How did we lose ornament? How did we lose this idea of ornamentation? It goes back to the early modern period when Mies van der Rohe adopted the idea of less is more. The idea that simple expression of architecture as opposed to the false skins of ancient societies was a better expression of architecture that advanced the modern movement into America. By the 1960s and 70s, Robert Venturi was saying less is a bore. In other words, we'd gone too far, we'd lost the expression of architecture. Things began to look the same. Everything began to appear monotonous. So this return to ornamentation, return to ornamenting things has come back. But in that 50-year, 60-year period of modernism, we've forgotten the art of ornamentation, the art of design. Well, there's 3 things you need to remember as you look to use ornamentation in your building. First of all, ornamentation is communication. Ornamentation is language. Ornamentation ought to, because it's expressive, there's a difference between French ornamentation and English ornamentation and Italian ornamentation. On my left here is an English pilaster that comes from ancient designs from the Tudor and Jacobean period of English architecture. The strapwork carving, all those details, even the wood, express it in English style. So that's English language. On my right here is more of a Palladian style design coming from Italy, the egg and dark, going back to the strong classical era. So each has a different language. Each has different uses of moldings and different ways of expressing wood so that it communicates. So when you're ornamenting, remember it's part of the communication process. Remember that the ornamentation that you use should be expressed using the style that you're employing on your project. Second, ornamentation is part of hierarchy. Ornamentation is part of communicating a time and a place. Don't ornament everywhere. And ornamentation is not to be used throughout the house. In other words, there ought to be a layering and a level of ornamentation that communicates where you're supposed to be, where you're supposed to land, what rooms are important, what rooms aren't important. You aren't going to ornament a closet the same way you're going to ornament a dining room. So to use ornamentation in those ways and to express higher ornamentation, more ornamentation in an important room is part of that language. And finally, finding the expert and finding someone who really understands how to ornament and how to put things together is very important. Ornament's difficult today because I think that 95% of all off-the-shelf ornamentation, brackets and carvings and things like that, they're blocky and chunky, or they certainly don't correspond to the true architectural styles going back to the team. So you need to be careful today, and the key is to team up with, to align yourself with designers that really understand this. Certainly, designers in the ICA, Institute of Classical Architecture and Art, would be a group and a team that would understand these kinds of language, this form of expression. So I want to encourage you to ornament. I want to encourage you to use ornamentation to express beauty, because one of the things that we need in our homes today is we need beauty. Thank you for watching. We have other videos available on architecture and design that I encourage you to watch as well. I encourage you to pursue beauty and great design in all your projects.
Welcome to the Classical Architecture Workshop. My name is Brian Young, and today we will be discussing arts in architecture. I'll be giving a brief introduction to this topic. The structure of this presentation is a better understanding of ornament in architecture. First, we'll look at what is ornament. We'll define it. Then we'll look at what is the purpose of including ornament. From there, we'll proceed to when do you use ornament and what are its different categories. Next, we will identify where ornament should be placed. And then finally, we'll look at how ornament can be designed and applied. Let's begin with a quote from Michelangelo. He says, "Do not neglect small things, for that is where perfection is. Perfection is no small thing." Ornament, writes Stephen Sens in his book, The Architecture of the Classical Interior, may be defined as the architecture of the near view. Take this example from the Utah State Capitol. We've got a photograph, and as we zoom in, this particular lighting in particular, find more. No, it is truly the architecture of the near view. And as Michelangelo said, we should pay attention to this. Ornament comes from the Latin verb ornare, which means to confer honor or grace, to dress, to equip, to decorate, furnish, adorn, garnish, trim, embellish, or to beautify.
writes that ornament might be referred to as an enrichment of a building in order to reveal the building's use. So, for instance, we might have a portal with an image of Christ. That your another way of that is often confused with ornament is decoration. Enrichment of architecture that has structural systems at work. In other words, it is a poetic expression. So, how do we apply ornament? Let's say, well, if we go back and we learn from Leon Battista Alberti, the 10 books of architecture, he writes, it is generally allowed that the pleasure and delight which we feel of any building arise from the impulse and ornament. He continues, beauty will have such an effect even upon an enraged enemy that it will disarm and prevent him from offering anything. Can be found in harmonious relationships which have stood the test of time. According to Plato, it says that beauty is the sign of another. Another way we might view beauty is that the traditions that we pass down from generation to generation in a particular culture. Consider when we use turn to the varying classifications of it with its respective functions. So, for instance, if you're trying to convey something that is, say, symbolic or such as the celebration of a historical person, place, or turn to ornament to reinforce a building's purpose. The same could be said of using ornament as a strategy to convey a word. It could remind us or teach onlookers something about its habits or other memory devices. Lastly, we use ornament if we want to add to the of a space or object and enhance its light or ambiance through the use of. For instance, some of the rich details that can be found in Chicago and the various messages and meanings through architectural ornament. This reminds me of a quote by Kent Bloomer in his book Nature. He says, quote, this language of ornament, like the languages of speech, must be nourished by active perseverance and education. There is simply not within each successive generation of designers and artists to reinvent the complex grammar and visual outlines of the most outstanding projects from the past. So, how do we nourish this language of ornament? One way is by learning about the various. So after we consider this question of when to use ornament, we begin to look at what time should be used. An ornament itself is broken into 7 categories.
botanical, landing, topography, and a hybrid, which usually comprises two or more. So let's look at that. First, let's start with as we consider with human, we see here that ornament is applied to the frieze area of an entire school on the facade of a building. From maidens gathering stops or symbolic depictions. Or to celebratory scenes of ancient Roman festivals. All of this can be described as part of human ornament in the fiction. It is also one of the highest and grandest. Next, we have the category of animals. When we find animals in our category, we can find anywhere from typical sacrificial animals, like in the trees there on the left, or we can find animals like the sphinx, as well as the lion. We can find the pygmy, dragon, rams, to flying horses, or griffins. You can also see these animals in various cultures from around the world. From elephants in India to dragons in China. And all of these elements are used in various ways to convey meaning and messages. Next, we move on to the botanical. In the botanical, we find lots of patterns, vegetal motifs, specifically in the classical tradition. We usually see the use of the acanthus leaf. It is very much symbolic and similar to the use of the lotus as found in the Eastern tradition. And usually it's symbolic of renewal and birth, resurrection. But we can see other vegetal motifs and how repetitive patterns can be applied to the area of the trees and metallurgy, to sculptural patterns and decorative paint. Here we find some examples of their structural qualities. Clay, stone, plastic. Then we consider the category of man-made objects. Well, a lot of man-made objects we might describe as musical or celebrating a specific purpose or building. Let's say an opera or a symphony. What about more civic buildings that may celebrate victories in war? And have other man-made objects include machinery or crowns, shields, royal crowns. What about even the compass itself? Between the triglyphs on this, you see that they're using various with symbolic meaning. Next, we move on to the geometric. In the geometric, we find various patterns, starting with its the most basic from circles, squares, but then more complex piles, such as the meander over below. You see some of these piles where the wave scroll, or the Greek key. All of these geometric patterns can be easily applied to various elements within classical architecture. The next type of architectural ornament is what we might describe as mnemonic or typography. They also include with lettering, the written word, codes, abbreviations. You see featured the Pantheon. We see other inscriptions about representing concepts in a specific building, like equality, justice, and the law. Or in monuments dedicated to a specific person. Whether it's religious or political. Lastly, we have hybrid methods of painting. So here on the left, you have an example. We've got the zodiacal constellations depicted in their allegorical symbols. Other examples include vegetal motifs as well as sculptures, or even man-made objects like the lion. Here's more complex examples where vegetation is mingled with animals and human beings or gods or goddesses. Yet further examples show that how these themes can be intertwined with one another. From busts, foliating scrolls, cherubs, urns, and vases, or even the dolphins, or using ornament to take the sense of architectural elements, such as brackets. This paragraph of the church in the rose window, from missing beasts to human figures. All of this leads us to think about a quote by George Orwell. He says, "A building without ornament is like the heavens without stars." As we begin to address the question about where ornament should be placed or located on the building, there are a couple of things to consider. But first off, we should be reminded that classical architecture in and of itself, whether it's the columns themselves or the buildings, they all have an anthropomorphic connection. Here is an example from Giorgio Martini. Very many other courses, I have found plenty of and so as you're thinking about it, you might think of this as anthropomorphic. In classical architecture in general, buildings are which typically consist of 14 to 15 standard which are depicted here. A simple analysis of the shape is how buildings are classified. So they are either concave, convex, planar, or just plain surfaces, or compact. Bridge moldings in general are ideal locations to place various ornamental patterns.
All brown buds are filled with psyllium fiber to help you lower cholesterol. Give these buddies a try today. Treasure HD's City Guide makes the pavement to seek out distinctive architecture and history. Local guides share the folklore design of buildings to bring neighborhoods to life. From Romanesque Ireland to Montreal, discover the fascinating architecture of olden Europe and other cities all over the world. As the third oldest city in Canada, Montreal's architecture stretches over almost 4 centuries. The most prestigious urban development in the lifespan of the city was the Golden Square Mile. When land in old Montreal became scarce during the 1850s, the middle and upper classes retreated toward the hillside of Mount Royal. Builders incorporated a wide range of styles, from the Renaissance to Second Empire to Beaux-Arts. Comprises some of the most beautiful residential architecture in Montreal. City guides head to Montreal, Quebec, to explore the architectural treasures of the Golden Square Mile. Or Côte-Neige Path to the west, to the south, and University Street to the east.
Montreal's Golden Square Mile is due to the fact that for a near century, from 1850 into the late 1930s, Montreal was of Canada's wealthiest, most influential, powerful families lived within it. The house on the left is former home to Sir Hugh Allen, who in 1871 inaugurated Her Majesty Queen Victoria into the Constitution in the British Empire.
Sir Hugh Allen, as a shipping magnate, later as a railway promoter and president. He commissioned architects to build him a grand home that would never disappear. When it was complete, he named the 34 rooms 14 acres this first castle. The Italian mansion is fully built on the hillside of the lake. Freeborn Island, a classically stylized Italian villa, includes a graduated cornice with decorative dentile, elaborate window surrounds, and a portico of pillars at the main entrance. Even the stables were extravagant. They were built in the same consistent Italian Renaissance style. Sir Allen would have no doubt enjoyed the view of the St. Lawrence as he watched his ships depart from the town.
So we'll leave the scenes of Canada behind and head toward the rails of the Canadian Pacific. The building beyond me is the former house of James Ross and currently McGill University's Faculty of Law. Among many of James Ross's career accomplishments, he was named General Manager of Construction of the Canadian Pacific Railway building westward. In 1892, James Ross commissioned the renowned American architect Louis Price to construct this building. Louis Price was responsible for the shuttle from Quebec City and Grand Springs in Alberta. Ross's home is built of Threaded Valley limestone. It is a mix of both French chateau style and Scottish chateau style, and aspects of this are its circular turret, its rather central imposing imposing tower-like entrance with its large doors that almost gives you the feeling of a moat coming down through the street.
The Chateauet style is often characterized by a regular asymmetrical design, broken by turrets and towers. Additional details include iron finials, carved stone ornamentation, and decorative cornices. The main entrance has a large arched doorway with stones around.
We are now looking on to the former home of J.K.L. Ross, son of James Ross. Architects of this building are the Montreal-based Maxwell brothers, Edward and William. It dates from 1909, and it is just as long as Windsor, proving the Maxwell brothers' exasperating compliance, given the fact that they had to draw at least 5 different student homes 6 years before construction began.
The Maxwell brothers, Edward and William, ran one of the most prominent and influential architectural firms in Canada leading up to World War I. Their commission on the J.K.L. Ross House resulted in an austere, classical Beaux-Arts style residence built using local limestone. The Edwardian Baroque facade includes elements such as ionic pilasters, broken pediment, and arched entrance with decorative keystones. The central positioning of the pediment, pilasters, balcony, and main entrance reinforces the design symmetry. The fenestration also demonstrates another typical example of classical design, as it becomes smaller and less embellished higher up the building.
The building behind me is the Musée des Beaux-Arts de Montréal, the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts, originally founded under the name the Art Association of Montreal in 1860, making it Canada's oldest and first museum. The building dates from 1912, and it was built once again by the Maxwell brothers of Montreal. The museum is built in the Beaux-Arts style, and it proves to be one of Canada's finest examples of Beaux-Arts. The symmetrical composition of the structure, along with its grand staircase that leads to a series of very imposing columns, each of which is built out of a single block, along with the imposing entrance and the use of white marble from Manchester, Vermont, are all key elements in Beaux-Arts style. And finally, the bas-relief carved into the white marble of the facade of the museum are reflections on ancient Roman and Greek art tradition.
The lobby is made with marble and includes a grand staircase. Large marble columns border the top of the stairs. The walls along the stairs have large arched openings revealing the main floor side halls and their vaulted ceilings. The museum is comprised of several large exhibit rooms with high ceilings, but otherwise very little ornamentation. In 1991, the museum expanded and opened a new contemporary structure across the street from the original 1912 building. The entrance features a sloped glass roof that allows plenty of natural light to fill the public lobby. The doors are also made of glass, allowing for further transparency from the main street. Up next, City Guides continues its look at opulent architecture along the Golden Square miles of Sherwood Street. The aptly named Golden Square Mile contained a high concentration of some of the richest and most powerful families in Canada from the mid-19th to the early 20th century. Rough estimates claim that around the year 1900, 70% of Canada's wealth was owned by the residents of the Golden Square Mile. Their wealth gave eager architects the ability to build homes of great extravagance and craftsmanship. Despite its decline during the Depression and the loss of many beautiful estates, their surviving structures from the Golden Square Mile transformed into a vital sector of Montreal's downtown and preserve a precious part of its architectural history.
Old Renfrew proves to be Canada's most prestigious of department stores. Almost every Canadian city hosts one. It was actually founded in Quebec City in 1837 by an Irishman. It was in 1886 when it was designated Courier in Ordinary to Her Majesty, that being Queen Victoria, that it truly came to prominence. The assortment of window sizes, its form and layout, along with the flat, angular edges, its smooth, curved volumes, articulate the modernist influences to this Art Deco look. The fauna motifs found on either side of the facade's main window are a reflection of both the participation of Holt Renfrew in the fur trade industry and its designation as Courier in Ordinary to Her Majesty Queen Victoria.
Unfortunately, many of the original interior Art Deco features have been lost. The store was updated with a more modern, streamlined look. The store includes a cafe on the lower level and 4 floors of shopping. One of the old interior walls of window openings still survives as a reminder of the original structure. After almost 175 years, Holt Renfrew remains the only upscale Canadian chain department store available across the country.
The structure behind me is a historical monument, and although its architectural style was very similar to the Victorian era, it's actually a marvelous variant of the Golden Square Mile in that its owner and its architect are French Canadian.
The house was built for Louis Joseph Bourget, a wealthy businessman and one of the few French Canadians living within the Golden Square Mile. He was the first French Canadian to become president of the Montreal Stock Exchange and director of the board of the Canadian Pacific Railway. Bourget commissioned architect Maurice Perrault to build his house along the prestigious Sherbrooke Street in 1893.
The most prominent building material of this home is the native gray limestone of Montreal, and the most predominant architectural feature in regards to the Second Empire is the mansard roof. One of the most impressive aspects to the home are the original hand-carved front entrance doors with its beautiful wrought iron detail.
Second Empire style refers to the Second Empire of Napoleon III in France. The architecture is typically ornate, with elements such as large decorative window surrounds. Here we see pilasters framing the windows and dormers. There is a decorative cornice and additional carved stone surrounding the main entrance. Since 1927, the building has been used as the Montreal headquarters for the United Services Club.
When not at home or on the boardroom, directors of Montreal's major corporations often be found in a handful of exclusive private clubs. Behind me is the city's first such club, the Mount Royal. The Mount Royal Club ended up hiring the New York-based architectural firm Kingsley and White to build their new and current clubhouse, which dates from 1966. The structure itself, once again, is built of Montreal limestone, and one simply needs to look beyond it to see its truly neoclassical line, rather austere feeling. However, if one looks above the main doors, one gets a suggestion of the rather whimsical Beaux-Arts style physically through the balustrade. We now find ourselves in the heart of downtown Montreal, Dorchester Square. This site was designated a cemetery in 1799, and sadly became overridden with bodies due to the 1832-34 cholera epidemic.
19th and early 20th century, many monumental buildings, such as the Romanesque Windsor train station, the Renaissance-style Mary Queen of York Cathedral, and the Beaux-Arts Sunlight Building were added. This transformed the square into a vital urban environment and a major pedestrian thoroughfare.
When the Sunlight Building was inaugurated in 1933, it remained for the next 29 years the largest edifice in the British Empire. What that doesn't suggest was the 20-year process it took to complete construction. Construction was begun in 1913, but halted for a 4-year period due to World War I, and again due to the Great Depression.
The building was tiered like a wedding cake, and at the time of its completion, the typical structure of the common one. The facade has a row of Corinthian columns which support a shallow set portico at the main entrance. Additional rows of columns are also located higher up the building, along with balustrades and a decorative bronze topping the tiers. It continues to operate as an office building in Montreal's downtown core.
When Montreal's Catholic Cathedral lost to fire in the 1850s, Monseigneur Bourget, Montreal's second bishop, decided to rebuild in the heart of the new downtown, the Golden Square Mile. And the purpose behind the construction of Mary Queen of York was to recreate St. Peter's in Rome. Indeed, the new space is a near exact replica, but 1/3 the size of St. Peter's.
The north end, which is the lobby area of a cathedral, is the first room inside the main doors. It has 3 additional doors which are individually decorated with different combinations of keystones, pediments, and pilasters. The central approach inside the cathedral is called the nave. High vaulted ceilings have a decorative carved-wood pattern and are supported by columns of gilded Corinthian capitals. Similar patterns are repeated along the side aisles. There is a replica of St. Peter's Baldacchino, which is a sculpted canopy decorated with a carved garland of angels above the high altar. The dome of the cathedral, known as the apse, is positioned directly above the high altar. Meticulously detailed, it includes dormers around the circumference of the apse and an ocular window on the dome. Mary Queen of the World Cathedral is a reminder of how complex cathedral architecture, with its historic figures and majestic ornamentation, is designed to inspire and achieve. Coming up, City Guides gets a glimpse of one of the most popular homes in the Golden Square Mile. Montreal's interesting and eclectic architectural history spans almost 400 years. From the historic Old Montreal to the traditional multi-level row homes on the plateau to the modern downtown.
When I say mango, you say Google. Mango.
European plan, body green.
Downtown core, the architecture is remarkably varied. But only one district lay claim to the most lavish residential collection of buildings in the city, and that's the Golden Square Mile. Railway developers, financiers, mid-19th to the early 20th century are a few examples of typical residents of the neighborhood. Their homes are unsurpassed in beauty, craftsmanship, and grandeur. The Mount Stephen Club, a Members Club, is considered the most impressive surviving example of the opulent history that's become synonymous with the Golden Square Mile.
Although referred to today as the Mount Stephen Club, it was built for George Stephen. Stephen was one of the Bank of Montreal, Canada's first bank. He also was one of the founding members of the Canadian Pacific Railway. The house itself was completed in 1883 and is clearly a wonderful example of Renaissance style architecture. What makes it spectacular is the eclecticism of the structure itself. It is both early and high Victorian era Renaissance style, and it is an excellent example of English Baroque and Italian Renaissance, all in one eclectic building.
The Renaissance style is based on the notion of symmetry. The decorative features are always important for balance to the overall design. All the windows on the facade surround with alternating shapes. Interiors are arched where the upper level windows are straight. Additional features include the decorative cornice and ample carved stone. The main entrance is emphasized with a portico supported by Corinthian columns. The Baroque is a result of the heavy ornamentation with
One of the most beautiful mansions in the world. Over 2,000 men contribute from here in this beautiful mansion. All these people are differences permanent. And the work that you see here is crystal dance. This one is really special.
the grand salon, also known as the drawing room, is the most majestic room in the house and is used for large social gatherings. Skillfully carved wood paneling and ceiling create a sense of opulence. With little expense spared, even the decorative cornice, more commonly made of plaster, is hand carved from wood. Fixtures are original to the house and are plated in 22-karat gold. There are 10 fireplaces throughout the house. The one found in the drawing room is the most elaborate. Made of Italian onyx and hand-painted tiles, it won first place at the Chicago World Fair in 1893.
The house became a private home in 1927 and named Stephen in honor of the main dining room is the only room that is always functional. The structural room is a master bedroom, followed by good and it's the only room that has a connection with the Olympic rock plant. The Father La Commune was originally George Stephen's library. It was here that he entertained his businesses with. The family bedroom was located on the second floor. Despite the size of the mansion, it has only 3 bedrooms.
The Cuban mahogany used in the hall is carried on through to the grand staircase and is considered the masterpiece feature of the house. The graceful procession up the stairs leads to 300-year-old Austrian stained glass windows. They depict scenes and quotations from Shakespeare. The architect William Thomas, who was known for designing cathedrals, decided to reproduce the cathedral ceiling high above the staircase.
And on the ceiling, it's gorgeous with the fourth element.
3 years and 3,000 workers at a total cost of $600,000 resulted in this magnificent home of European craftsmanship. This unimaginable price tag in 1883, equal to approximately $15 million in today's market, produced one of the finest homes in all of Montreal. In just 1 square mile of Montreal, a landmark city of North America, this district represents a period of time when powerful came together to build the country. The homes they left behind not only reflect the magnitude of their wealth, they remain a testament to the vision of the forefathers of Canadian architecture and a significant contribution to the country's architectural history.
I spend a lot of time in Montreal. It really is, together with Copenhagen and Barcelona, one of my favorite places on the planet, a home away from home. But I still have a problem putting my finger on what makes this city so great. Through the centuries, Montreal has found itself at a global crossroads where nations, cultures, and languages have met or were fiercely defended. Now, it's as though Montreal is a city that spends a lot of time wondering about itself. I wouldn't call it an identity crisis, more of an identity melange. This city faces real urban challenges. The people here will tell you that they have the worst potholes on the planet. It might be true, but they say it with a sense of ironic pride. Is that the metaphor that defines this place? Citizens constantly having to navigate safe passage through a ruthless asphalt jungle? Maybe it is. Let's find out. Montreal has often been dubbed Little Paris. It's not. It's been described as New York with a European twist. Nah. While it's true that Montreal is the largest French-speaking city in North America, trust me when I say that this city has an identity all its own. While cheap rents have long made Montreal a great place for artists to live and thrive, giving the city its cultural clout, it has also suffered from years of corruption and neglect. Montreal continued to thrive, however, by reinventing itself on a smaller scale than most urban hubs. The city's current identity is inextricably tied to the vibrancy and diversity of its 19 boroughs. From one block to the next, there is a world of difference. I would even say multiple worlds. Almost 6 out of 10 Montrealers are immigrants or of immigrant descent. Montreal is not the biggest, not the richest, not the boldest. That is not the point. It's one of the best cities to live in the whole entire world. And that makes it a happy underdog.
There are very few high-rises. Everywhere is just residential buildings that are 2, 3, 4 stories with tight-knit streets and everything close together. This is the good house, all right? So flat over flat over flat. Here you go, spontaneous meeting between the third-story resident and the second-story resident. Very typical.
As an associate professor in urban studies, David Hanna digs deep to understand what makes up this place, focusing on heritage and transport. He was recently appointed as commissioner for Montreal's Public Consultation Office. Oh, and he absolutely loves his city.
Boston has its double-deckers and triple-deckers. Chicago is full of 2-flat, 3-flat, 4-flat houses with the same stuff. The difference is the outside staircases, balconies. That's Montreal. Yeah. But it brings people outside. It's kind of intermediary spaces. You never come out and run into your neighbor. Neighborhood is just built into the architecture. Every one of these neighborhoods in Montreal has 1 or 2 major commercial arteries. Even during the arrival of the automobile and the shopping malls and all that, these are always kept going, a lot of municipal care. So it becomes the glue of the neighborhood.
Every city has challenges. Every city has a dark side. What is that for Montreal?
Corruption.
Oh, okay. That's a quick answer.
It's a corruption cycle here. Where the population is apathetic, doesn't want to hear about it, and then suddenly it just goes over the top. And the public wakes up and, holy cow, what's going on here? And then they want commissions of inquiry, they want prosecutions, and bingo, for 3 years of intense inquiries, and everybody's like shocked, my gosh. Then we get the reform theory. It goes about maybe 2 or 3 more years. A lot of reforms put in, new inspectors, new laws, and all that. And then we get the sweet spot. We get about 50 years of good government.
After years of corruption, and by that I mean rigged bidding on municipal contracts, kickbacks to city officials, and the mayor indicted for fraud and conspiracy, well, after all of that, important reforms were implemented. And David thinks Montreal is in for a period of intelligent and citizen-oriented government. Well, only time will tell. what is the state of the nation in Montreal regarding gentrification, and especially a neighborhood like this one?
Well, it is a hot subject here too. There's a lot of stress over it and a certain amount of political struggling over it. We have our traditional urban poor who are still here. And some of the benefits from rent protection, from co-op housing, and programs that Quebec has to stabilize people and keep them in their houses at very favorable prices. Right? Others are indeed pushed out by rising rents.
I know this is not New York or even Toronto, but for this neighborhood, Hochelaga Maisonneuve, it is a radical transformation. An ocean of condos has popped up in the area, jumping from 500 to 4,000 in just 20 years. Activists have denounced the situation openly and vocally, and sometimes violently. We may not agree with the method, but it certainly is symbolic of a ubiquitous discomfort.
This looks like it's been recently redone, all right? Well, more tthan redone, it was done. It was done. There was no square here.
Oh, really?
That is the railway crossing coming into the industrial neighborhoods and heading off towards downtown. And then it flows through here and then disappears out through the factories. And they abandoned it in the 60s. So finally in the 90s, they were just going to hey, let's do something with special spaces. So the Great Level Crossing then becomes a public square. So this is kind of the new part now of the Hochelaga Maisonneuve neighborhood.
Is this a life-size city?
The city is made up of just what I would call ordinary, discrete people spaces that are very people scale, very local, and all people oriented, and that's what makes this place just so livable.
When this guy, Luc Ferrandez, and full disclosure here, has become a very good friend of mine, was first elected as borough mayor of the hip Plateau Montreal, he triggered a wave of very cool moves, all aimed at giving citizens their neighborhood back. Over the course of just a few years, are you ready for this? Luc's team added 7 new parks, revamped 6 others, installed 226 planters on street corners, made 93 intersections safer for pedestrians, lowered average speed limits, created 17.7 kilometers of new bike infrastructure, installed 5,000 bike parking spots, and greened 43 alleyways. Somebody pinch me.
People don't consider needs for public space. You know, you want to go through, you want to park, you're busy, and people think, hey, this guy's going to remove parking, take it out road, increase congestion. You do what? Public places? Who asked for public places? Once it's built, suddenly people realize, hey, I need this all my life. I didn't know it. You can do 20 different things just around you, 20 different things that you maybe didn't think about, but that will change everything. The park, the street, the sidewalk, the bike path, the back alley, we have to enrich the surrounding of people so they say, you know what, I want to live in a city.
To call this bike lane controversial would be a massive understatement. It was one of Luc's first projects in the Plateau. Back in 2011, he transformed a stretch of Laurier into a one-way street and implemented bike lanes on both sides. The rest is history.
I mean, this is a complete transformation.
Well, I think this is one of the ways that people appreciate the most is it's a subway station. The sidewalk was 1.5 meters along the station. That's it. And we said, okay, we're going to do 11-meter wide sidewalks. And even the engineer said, why? Why do you need 11 meters? So I know in Europe it's totally different. People are doing this on a regular basis. But in North America, it breaks some rules. Now people are not shy anymore to go for that. Engineers in here, school, subway station, church. This is the core of the village that didn't exist only because there was too many cars, too much noise. And all of a sudden, you're riding along the sidewalk, you do not hear them yet in the school year. And now you pass by and you hear them, and when you hear them, you turn your head and you look at them, and it creates a countdown. And it's like, this is beauty. The beauty of things is not the tree. It's how much people the tree will bring in. And when it works, it's magical.
Luc has recently been given given a new citywide mandate and is now in charge of the city's most important parks, green spaces, and large-scale projects. Montreal has a lot of fair-sized parks, and how does that impact city life here?
We have a lot of local parks in Montreal, and we have to have a lot of people coming to these local parks to make it a place to meet and to create society. And now, this is my responsibility now, is to create these huge parks that are no more about people gathering together, but people discovering the world. People have to dream about the public space. Are they going far enough? Who dreamt about Champs-Élysées? Who dreamt about Piccadilly Circus? You know, how do you dream about these things? How do you make sure that when you invest $150 million in these places, you're really answering to the needs of the people? I have this conviction that we need about that we need a place that represents the city and that you meet the city. And we want to sell this to Montreal. Look, we need huge public places. We need public places so big that you need 4 fountains on them. And this new dream is really, really it's great. 10 years ago, people were saying, oh, I would never raise my kid in the city. And now, I want to tell people, look, you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to pay for your taxes, but it's yours. It's yours. We're taking care of it, and it's yours.
You're kind of just the guardian of the city because you own it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the people are owning it. Let's own things in common. Let's invest in things in common that would be much, much better than if you invest in your backyard.
For some neighborhoods, the preservation of life-sized buildings and people spaces succeeded. But man, it was a very close call.
What a monster. It just looks completely out of scale, right? Like this just doesn't match.
The idea of these developers was to raise 6 blocks of old gray stones and beautiful 1800s.
Like these kind of buildings here.
And with this sort of building here, yeah. All of those were to go in, they were building all those high rises. 225 buildings were lost. What we did save were 640 units.
Yeah. It could have been way worse if Alana and her friends hadn't put up an epic fight to save the Milton Park neighborhood. Through the 70s and 80s, there were demonstrations, sit-ins, and protests. And the activists? They finally won in 1987. No more high-rises would be allowed to scar the skyline here from that moment onward. But it wasn't just an architectural thing. The fight was first and foremost about maintaining the socioeconomic base that made the neighborhood so singular. To keep affordable rents in place, they ended up creating North America's largest co-op network. Picture this. The Milton Park community is made up of 21 smaller co-ops, 1,500 people, and various forms of housing, from large single-family homes to rooming houses. Oh, and the best part, to prevent speculation, they came up with this creative system. Front yards, backyards, and alleyways are all owned by the community.
In our project, we built in acquired rights so that the people living here could indeed stay here. But we signed a document which ties us all to provide in empty apartments, low rent housing for families. There are also space requirement. Milton Park community has people from 50 different countries living here, from all different backgrounds and socioeconomic status. And if people move into the co-op and they're relatively poor economic situation, if they improve their situation during the time of fear, they don't get kicked out, like happens in some of the government-run cooperatives and so on. So it's unique in the way it's set up.
This is precisely what makes this place stand out. That and the fact that the Milton Park people never stop pushing for collective well-being. Their latest endeavor? Transforming a now decommissioned hospital housed in a nearby historical building into yet another co-op. They're joining forces with local groups to make sure that these future spaces include the mixed community that lives in the area, students, families, and a growing number of seniors. Alana insists Milton Park Co-op is much more than heritage houses and low rents. It's about building a community with a vision.
We brought our daughter up here, and it was amazing because everybody knows everyone. Never worried about her being out on the street because, like Jane Jacobs said, eyes on the street are so important. And when you live in a co-op, especially a huge co-op complex like this, there are many, many eyes on the street. Hi guys, this is Michael.
Hi.
Hi, are you ready to go to the co-op?
Alana's daughter and grandkids are here for what I imagined as a small neighborhood get-together. I was thinking backyard, a few tables, a barbecue. Boy, was I way off. Look at that. Look how long that table is from a back alley in Montreal with the people of the co-op. That's amazing. The community Alana was talking about, well, this is it.
Let's go get some wine. Have a seat.
Oh, thank you.
Would you like red or white?
Yes.
Yes.
What
Okay.
a setup. Absolutely
That's
amazing.
great. There you go.
Thank you.
Hi, Jesse.
It's really hard to interview you here today because you're talking to me and they go, oh, hey, how you doing? Like, that's awesome. Like, it's,
Sorry about that.
don't be sorry. It's, example. Did you envision back then when you were fighting the fight that you'd be sitting in this back alley, you know, on that beautiful summer's day with all of these people?
This is one of the major changes that I so am thrilled with, that so much social cohesion came out of everything that we've been doing. Everybody gets together, has a good time, and exchanges ideas, asks about each other's kids.
Is this something that could extend even further in Montreal?
Sure, I think so. And I think one of the things that people have to look at is not just perhaps building new co-ops, but taking areas like this with heritage homes and really working on perhaps talking to their neighbors and convincing them that they could do co-ops and buying their places and doing a similar thing. Yes, I think it's doable.
This is Champ des Possibles, the field of possibilities, a disused post-industrial urban space in the heart of the Mile End here in Montreal. One of my favorite desire lines in Montreal, possibly the world, leads this way, right towards this hole in the fence and the railway. She's no longer an industrial area. Now there are densely populated neighborhoods on either side. This is an incredibly important desire line for hundreds, if not thousands of people every single day. The railway is owned by Canadian National Railways. The city has a difficult time engaging them in a conversation about how to create level crossings. In the meantime, what happens is the citizens take back this space. They cut holes in the fences. There are Facebook groups telling people where the new holes are. Here you can see a former hole, which has been patched up with chain link fence and reinforced with steel. And the citizens here, you can see, have just created another hole. So let's just do it. Now I've been around and I've seen cities all over the globe. To me, Montreal seems to be a land of opportunity when it comes to underused spaces, just waiting to become something useful and meaningful to the people of the city.
We're next to the Jacques Bridge, we're by the St. Lawrence River, we're between the port and the highway. It's kind of a bit ridiculous a spot, but it works. Just last year we had 120,000 people come during 4 months, and people need spaces like this. And you see so many people moving to the suburbs these days and trying to kind of find a safe haven or some peace, but we've kind of wedged it in and tried to make something happen where people maybe wouldn't have thought it was possible.
This odd and interesting place is called Village Pied de Pont, which roughly translates as the village by the river. And the nonprofit behind it, and behind many public space initiatives throughout the city, is Le Pépinière, the nursery. It's an urban lab focused on innovation, creativity, and community engagement to redraw and rethink unused urban spaces. Violaine is the project manager for this very successful project.
We're on a snow dump here. So
Wait, what? Sorry, you're on a snow dump.
yeah, so in Montreal gets a little bit of snow. So this is where the city actually brings all the snow up the neighborhood. So they bring it here, there's huge piles, and it actually melts here. So in the winter, it's used by the city, but in the summer, there's absolutely nothing. It looks like a huge empty parking lot. So every year, we bring the sand, boardwalk, do a call for proposals, to invite teams of designers, architects, and visual artists and people to participate in the installations of the sites. And we're really bringing back attention to how incredible this area of the city is. And it's not just for cars, it's for people too. And the people who live on the other side of the highways in their neighborhood. Oftentimes people who live kind of downtown or in the Festival Royale, they're not as used to coming to this area. So we're slowly shifting the perspective of people and encouraging people to come back and enjoy their waterfront. And one day our dream is to be able to touch the water with their feet.
Even if accessing the nearby water isn't happening just yet, there's still a lot going on here. Playgrounds, art exhibitions, concerts, movie nights, yoga classes. Or should you want to just hang out, have a drink, eat a bite, and relax with your feet in the sand? Not bad for a place that doubles as a snow dump in the winter. What is this space? Is it private space, public space? How do you define it?
It's provincially owned private land, but we're creating a public space out of it. So that in and of itself is one of the sort of gray zones that we exist in. We're not really in any kind of area where there's necessarily laws exactly defining what we can and can't do. So it's both the curse and the beauty of the project. People aren't yet used to just being part of something in a public space. It's like you have to be invited or told what you're allowed to do. So slowly but surely, it's kind of see how people
Also makes this place stand out. Like all the projects run by the people behind it is an audacious philosophy. There's no publicity, no corporate sponsors, and no branding of any kind on the site. Violaine admits it candidly. It's very difficult to sustain this model. The city to invest more in city-defining projects, plain and simple.
What the fuck is that?
not forcing people to be filled.
I need to answer it.
I just forgot to answer that. Oh, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. He probably just was trying to take his shit, looked at the thing and pressed the buttons.
Yes, you can decide something, you can have a drink,
I should have done fucking
but you're
6:30
really
in
here
the
just to have an
morning.
experience and to participate in it.
Oh, or do you think this is something that can be scaled maybe up, but also outwards?
It's really important not to just replicate things because people enjoy it and want more of them. I think that the rooting in the neighborhood and the inspiration of the actual environment that you're having the project in is really important to sort of consider and to maintain. I think that sort of a mass production is maybe something that we have a tendency to revert towards or want to go towards, but I think the concept, the call for proposals, the fact that it's an underutilized space, that can definitely exist elsewhere in the city. But it's really important to just not just sort of replicate the thing.
I'm using my microphone cable here. Why? To be honest, the amount of lost space in the city completely blows my mind. Something like 21.8 square kilometers of vacant, abandoned space. That's 4.4% of the entire municipality. Just sitting there, unused, and sometimes even unaccounted for. I see this as a world of new possibilities to make this city even more spectacular.
To me, this project in Lakeland is really important because it helps communities have a vision for their neighborhoods and to try to answer some needs that the neighborhood has. Let's say there's one neighborhood, there's no grocery and no community garden, and there's a big plan. People could decide to do a garden there. And suddenly, the big plan becomes something to answer needs of the community. So that's why to me it's really important, and it's also something I really like about it because it's really, we see some people come out and give ideas, and that's really the most important.
Michael Saint-Pierre is a young and inspiring urban planner. With his friends, lawyers, urbanists, and designers, he founded LAM, a nonprofit helping citizens reclaim vacant land. They see themselves as facilitators. They dig up the info about the current owner of the vacant land, whether it's the city or a private owner, secure access to it, and even help with design and community engagement. Let citizens develop their own projects. The people of the neighborhood then take the helm, giving new life to the dead space around their homes.
We have this tool that we made. It's a website I can actually show you. It's a map where you can see all the little spots in the city of Montreal. As of right now, we have over 100 vacant lands that are on the map, and those are all vacant lands that people think. Let's say we go on where we are right now, and you have all the information. So that's the basic information. And we also have like a plugin where people can start talking. Oh, well, I'm neighbor, I live close by, we want to do something.
This is exactly what's happening here. This 181 square meter lot is privately owned, but left to rot for many years. Trash was scattered everywhere. Rats had basically taken over. So people began using it as a dump, which, no surprise, didn't please the neighbors. With the help of LAM, they turned things around. The municipality purchased the land and contributed to a small participatory budget. The citizens banded together to agree on a wish list for the place. And in no time, they created this. Off we go, in search of other success stories. This one here is the alley beside the Jardin Latino, just a few blocks away.
It was nothing like this. Garbage, bins, graffitis, cars, concrete. And we decided to get together like 30 volunteers and people from around. And we planted like 150 fruit trees. We planted so much flowers for pollinators. And in a weekend, we flipped the place.
David Alexandre has lived in Rosemont for many years. Every day, this social worker, doubling as a forestry worker, rode his bike through this concrete alleyway along a derelict community garden in one of the poorest and most challenged parts of the neighborhood. He decided it was time for change. And when this guy, aka the powerhouse, puts his mind to it, things get changed.
Who can we contact at the city and the borough to help us to use this land in a place where there is so much needs? And that's when Michael and Mom came in. Where we're sitting right now is Back Alley. It's owned by the city of Montreal.
Things were a bit complicated, but where there's a will, of course, there's a way. Let me wrap my brain around this. The land is owned by a supermarket. Well, except for a tiny piece owned by the city, preventing any possibility of expanding the store. The city's been renting the whole plot for years to host the community garden, but the city officials didn't even realize they were also renting all the abandoned space around the garden, up until LAM, after in-depth research, discovered it for them. This was a game changer.
Basically, we gave them access to the land and then we moved to a one-story program. We decided to plant fruit trees everywhere. So we have pears, apple,
plums, raspberries, blueberries, Alaska berries, goji berries. It's free. Everybody, you see the raspberries here, and when they're gonna be ripe, everybody can pick them up. People in need with socioeconomic difficulty, they deserve to have a nice place to live around.
And that's the value.
That is
It wasn't the value of, oh, we can pick plums. That's a nice value, but
yes,
it's more
it
than that.
is, but it is more social. Connecting people, connecting the community, get them involved. Like the chicken coop is all brought up by the community. Example, Jean Sebastien here with his son in the Monday morning, get the chicken out, feed them, and by night it's Micheline with her grandson that comes. So yes, we wanted to bonify the place with trees, but the thing was to create links between the people with Rastas and Rastas.
Michael, whenever you're ready, we'll capture this guys and put it in the box tonight, right? So, yeah, all right. Got my back? Yeah, I got your back. Oh, danger. Yeah, you need it. Come on, you need it. Montreal is a very green city, with about 21% of its area covered by green canopy. Unfortunately, this could all change very drastically over the next decade. No thanks to the ravaging ash tree beetle epidemic. Action has been taken, and almost 60,000 of Montreal's ash trees were saved. Still, 20,000 of them needed to be cut down, leaving just as many empty spots on the streets of Montreal.
Our main goal is to give public trees back. So we recycle these trees, turn them into furniture, and through different projects, we make sure that they end up in public spaces.
It all started as a pilot project when the borough of Rosemont-Petit-Patrie called on Ronald Jean-Gilles, a social entrepreneur. The hope was to find a way to turn trees into something more than just wood chips. And as it turns out, the beetle only attacks the bark of the trees, leaving the rest of the wood intact. And wood, between you and me and Ronald here, means furniture. In this case, street furniture. To make it all happen, we partnered up with several local organizations. One of them, Les Ateliers d'Antoine, is a workshop focused on social inclusion. And this is where Bois Public, which translates to the wood of the people if you want to be fancy, makes most of their furniture.
We got young people that came here because they're trying to reintegrate the workforce. We have local people, immigrants, everybody's welcome to teach them ultimate furniture. They work here for 5 months, and after that, they get a certificate so they can look for a real job on the market.
So we have, yes, good impact on the environment by recycling trees, but there's also a social economic impact by helping these young adults to have a second chance on life.
It all started in this neighborhood, but the idea has now spread around the city. Ronald and Bois Public are developing ideas with other boroughs and even other cities affected by the ash tree beetle epidemic. Their next step, they want to recycle other types of trees which have been cut down for other reasons. Since its foundation, Bois Public has built almost 100 benches, providing public seating in 5 neighborhoods. And to do that, they recycled more than 1,400 trees. Not bad, my friends, not bad. These little benches aren't meant for this specific park. They'll soon be moved to a green alleyway somewhere in the neighborhood. For the kids.
So what is it? For me, the best story is when we installed the furniture with the participants who are part of the reintegration program.
and they install furniture, and they get the reaction directly from the citizens who pass by, and they tell them, "Oh, this is very beautiful," and they can proudly say that the work on this project, I did this, I built this. So this is the best of recognitions for them.
We're going to talk about urban cycling. Montreal has been, in the North American context, way ahead of the curve. The first protected bike lane was put in the mid-1980s on this street, Rachel. The design that the city went was kind of lazy urban planning, these bi-directional on one side of the street. This is not best practice at all. This city desperately needs an infrastructure network of protected bike lanes. So the question is, where does Montreal go from here? The people have shown that they're ready for more, and that they deserve. Citywide, just under 3% choose the bicycle as transport, but in certain areas, double digits are imminent. They're ready to hit 10%. You don't see that in North America at all. The city is starting to implement unidirectional cycle tracks on either side of the street, and that is a great sign. This city has everything it needs to become a world-class bicycle city. We're in Parc Jarry, on the border of Park Extension, or Park X as it's known locally. A very diverse and low-income neighborhood, but one that's also stuck between a highway, a big boulevard, and a railway. The cycling network here is almost non-existent, and bike culture isn't really a thing for many newcomers, especially women.
Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Cool.
This is the map of the bike path in Montreal, and we are here in this area. So you see this black spot, and we have like this small island of cycle path. So that's fucking small, so it's actually not connected to the rest. So we're here to empower people and especially to go faster.
Cassandra and Nils, two French immigrants, are part of Culture Vélo, an organization democratizing the bicycle as a means of transportation. They opened a bike shop, but they wanted to do more. So they started providing cycling classes to the immigrant women of Park X.
Oh, that's Shavana. Hi.
Hi.
She's one of the students. So that's Michael.
Oh, Michael. Hello.
Are you ready to begin? Oh, yeah. Like the last time, you're going to try to remember you push and you try to widen your feet. Try to push a little bit more to have some more speed. Yeah, that's good. And look in front of you. Good, you're doing that. So don't be afraid to go a little bit faster.
How do you see the importance of these women learning how to ride a bike?
I think it's also important as a way of empowerment for women. It creates a sense of sisterhood, so it creates relations with women that wouldn't have met otherwise. They identify with each other. I have one student that last year she was cycling in the park, and there are many women that saw her that live in the same neighborhood, and they recognize her, and they call her in the evening and say, "Oh, you're riding a bike, you know how to do that. It's amazing, I want to learn."
It's a good way to go from sport to transport. For me, like, oh, it's super fast. You know, one of the students, she went to the library and it was like super fast with the bike. So she was like really happy about that. And I think that's the start where you are confident and then you start to explore. So you move from one place to another and then break the body.
Adama is from Senegal. She arrived in Montreal a few years ago with her husband and their 3 kids and landed here in Park Extension. Could you ride a bike before?
No, I never.
Never.
No.
What is the goal for you to learn how to ride a bike?
My goal is to do bicycle with my kids one day and to go to walk with my house bicycle.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun and it's for environment.
For the environment too, yeah. You're this close. I think totally. I will let you practice. Thank you.
Thank you.
3 lessons and she's been riding up and down. I mean, you know, it's a bit wobbly getting the momentum going, but like, wow, I'm impressed by anybody who can do that as an adult in 3 hours.
I think it makes you discover the city differently. You really can feel that you're at home, you can go everywhere, and it has the same effect on me actually that I really feel at home when I begin to ride the bike. Just using the public transport and going like exploring the city and feeling at ease everywhere. So I think it can bring that to them.
It's really, building bridges between, the people inside the community so that the community of bike learners grow and eventually they are the teachers, and they take like the course.
The most important part is to give the idea that first you can still learn, it's not too late, and in some years with all the women riding in Park Extension.
My next step is Montreal North, a neighborhood troubled by a persistent high crime rate and poverty. Many residents feel, more often than not, forgotten by the municipal authorities and left alone to deal with social exclusion. The infamous Hulot Pelletier was known for years as a kind of supermarket for all things drug and prostitution. It was a virtual no-go zone, smack dab in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Children would walk past this sad and derelict place every day on their way to the local high school. After a police crackdown, citizens decided they'd had enough, and they completely turned things around. Local organizations bought the buildings and created social housing. The citizens also launched a series of creative projects. They opened a daycare, a community garden, and a food co-op. So Noria, what are we doing?
People make their orders like for 2 weeks.
Do they pick it up or do you deliver?
Well, they come to pick it up, those who have like the ability to do it, but there is also delivery for people who have less mobility.
When Noria landed here from Algeria in 2009, she was shocked to learn that food access was an issue in Montreal North, right here in Canada. 1 person out of 3 in this neighborhood lives in a food desert, an urban area in which it's difficult to buy affordable or good quality fresh food. And almost half of the children here live under the poverty line. Noria realized that poverty, well, it hits all over the globe, no matter what continent you live on. She got involved right away and became one of the first members of the Panier Fruité Food Co-op. Every member here volunteers at least 3 hours a month so that everyone has access to fresh and affordable food.
This is the place where the co-op operates. Maybe you can help with the parsley.
Yeah, sure. All right. Got it there. What is the difference between now and then when you first arrived?
First, I think it gives hope for people. The co-op is making some social interactions. People get together. They learn to live together. And living together means having more tolerance towards the other and towards yourself. Because, when you live in poverty, it kind of entertains loneliness. And when you're alone, thinking that you're the only one having your situation and being excluded, it's difficult to get involved in the society. It's this human connection that's lacking actually in this individualistic society, and that's what we are trying to change.
So it's not just food and food access and food security, it's community.
It's community.
Right. That's important to you.
Yeah.
You're here at high
Of
school.
course,
Yeah.
of course. I come from Algeria.
Yeah. How do you see the future of your neighborhood?
What my vision is that food is just a tool to generate other changes. It starts small, but it gets bigger. We just have to make some energy and some effort in it. I believe that's important.
You're in my backyard,
I'm
actually.
in your backyard.
Yeah, you're in my backyard because it's apartments with usually small yards. I'm on the second floor, so I don't have access to the yard. So alleys, it's my backyard.
Jenny and Catherine here were neighbors for years, but they only became friends while transforming their back alley into a green space. It's called the Petit Village Sicao, the little Sicao village, named after a nearby street. You have to understand that alleys are a true part of this city's DNA. Get this, there are more than 500 kilometers of alleyways on the island of Montreal. That's a lot. Their modern renaissance happened in the 80s and through the 90s, with a few municipal programs giving citizens the means to green them together, transforming car shortcuts into vibrant and unique spaces. There are now around 400 and counting of these green alleys throughout 12 of Montreal's 19 boroughs.
When I started to come in the alley, but as soon as you start living in this space, then people start coming out. See? See? If there's people, there'll be more. If there's nobody, then nobody wants to come.
Au début, c'était affaissement de la circulation et verdissement de la ville pour diminuer les îlots de chaleur. Donc, on a enlevé de l'asphalte, on a mis de la terre, des arbres, des fleurs, puis on a bloqué des accès aux ruelles. La circulation est apaisée. Puis, petit à petit, on a des arbres fruitiers pour les enfants, des légumes.
Oh, right here. You can feel it right here, right? Seriously, man, the temperature just dropped like 15 degrees here, just in this tree.
On a un gros spectacle aujourd'hui parce qu'on a rencontré une nouvelle famille qui sont installées. Et puis, on s'est dit, ben, il y a une fête pour les enfants, pour la fin de l'année scolaire, ça serait bien. Donc, il y a une troupe de styles qui sont bien.
Jenny and Catherine insist this is just a bunch of neighbors doing a bunch of stuff. No rules, no obligations, no strict organization. And for the good people of this little village, it needs to stay that way.
Quand on a un envie, un élan du cœur, on peut partir de l'initiative, puis les gens embarquent. Tout pas. Des fois, il y a 4 personnes, des fois, c'est 150. When you're not organized in life, you don't need to be organized in the weekend. Là, c'est obligatoire. Quand c'est trop formel, il faut conjuguer avec des règles, des dynamiques entre voisins. C'est pas toujours évident. On n'a pas envie de s'embarquer là-dedans. On y va avec le feeling.
When you started, you didn't have the grand vision of this today.
No, the community that's built around the Green Alley is a big bonus. So big that we were supposed to move, but we decided to stay. And a lot of people are coming back. My husband lost his father, and when we came back from the funeral, there were 20, 30 cars around our door. And avec des citoyens canadiens, came back and said, so we got this solidarity, solidarity and carefree, and we fell in love with everybody. Almost. On se fait un petit village dans un grand village.
I've met with great people working on great projects here in Montreal, urging the city to do more, to be better. But this little back alley, filled with kids and people simply hanging out and becoming friends, this is what Montreal truly is. The citizens here don't always need the city in order to make things happen. They just do it in every neighborhood, on every scale. They are truly an inspiration to urban citizens around the world. I kind of wanted another tattoo of Montreal. I already have it. I have like Oxford Street in San Diego. This is where I first landed as a boy. This is where I meet my friends. This is where I stay. It means a lot to me. So I'm just going to lick it up and give it the snow that it has 5 months a year. Give it light cleans, which it deserves, as does the rest of the city. Oh, that's so cool. This is a city that stands firmly on the shoulders of its citizens, who hail from every corner of the world. They define it, not the other way around. Montreal is raw, edgy, irreverent, creative, dynamic, resilient, and on top of that, this is one of the coolest, most chill places I could ever imagine. Montreal, all down. Call it whatever you want. I really don't think it cares. This underdog city is just happy that you want to be here. And that's why I keep coming back. TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today. This is my origin and my destination. Our apartment here in Fredericksburg, in the heart. In my work traveling around the world, I look different from where I again. I see the challenges, I see the hurdles. This city has been a global benchmark for urbanism for many years. I want to show you some of the great things that make the city so unique and make it work so well. Leadership is not resting on their laurels. There's a constant search for innovation, for improvement, for urban development. I will find out what the state of urban nation is right here in my city. First, it's leaders. You guys ready? All right, let's do it. At the very origin of this series, the very idea of the life-size city lies Copenhagen. I've lived here for more than 20 years, and trust me, this city works. The Danish capital is an inspiration on how to get it right. Year in and year out, dozens of global rankings published by The Economist, Mercer, Forbes, Monaco, just to name a few, have explored, analyzed, and dissected Copenhagen and placed it.
à des sites B1, B2, B3, et en chacune une année. Donc, des sessions d'automne.
Après 86, l'élection du RCM, ces gens-là avaient une attention particulière au milieu de vie. Il y a eu un rapport qui a été fait pour proposer la création de la division du patrimoine. Cette annonce de division étant logée pour faire une inspection, on était à Après 86, l'élection du RCM, ces gens-là avaient une attention particulière au milieu de vie. Il y a eu un rapport qui a été fait pour proposer la création de la division du patrimoine. Cette annonce de division étant logée pour faire une inspection, on était à Après 86, l'élection du RCM, ces gens-là avaient une attention particulière au milieu de vie. Il y a eu un rapport qui a été fait pour proposer la création de la division du patrimoine. Cette annonce de division étant logée pour faire une inspection, on était à même de voir que les gens pouvaient devenir un permis pour transformer des immeubles qui étaient absolument magnifiques, pour transformer des façades, pour modifier des ouvertures. Donc, rapidement, on s'est dit qu'il y a un travail à faire de sensibilisation à l'égard de ce patrimoine montréalais.
On avait commencé à annoncer le service de l'humanisme, donc évidemment, il y aurait la préoccupation du patrimoine. Ça me faisait bien qu'il fallait que cette nouvelle préoccupation soit partagée par les citoyens.
Pour moi, l'idée, c'était de faire comprendre aux gens que toutes les parties de la ville de Montréal ont un patrimoine intéressant. Peu importe si c'est construit dans les années 1950 ou 1880, on peut regarder chez nous, dans son voisinage, et apprendre à apprécier ces petits bâtiments. Les objectifs de base pour la création d'opérations, c'est d'avoir une collaboration avec la ville de Montréal pour saluer et soutenir les efforts des citoyens